Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow orders to the letter, and most of the times it's to spite somebody. Guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and in this episode, there's 3 stories. The first story involves OP contacting his patient's mistress. Oof. The second story, OP's mother gets fired and takes down her boss, and we'll finish up with a story where Karen screws herself over like she always does. My friends, I do hope you enjoy the stories today, and hit that subscribe button for future tales. Let's dive in. So, this happened in 2009. I was working part-time at a doctor's office while in nursing school. I was one of the receptionists, and I did the filing and cataloging and such. It was boring work, but my doctor, the boss, guaranteed me a job after nursing school, so that's why I did it. Now, this particular doctor was an orthopedic surgeon. We had lots of patients coming in for MRIs, CT scans, and x-rays. And this one particular patient, Frank, was scheduled to have surgery in a couple of days, and he needed to come and pick up his MRIs and x-rays from our office. So anyway, I called Frank to tell him to come pick up his images, but he didn't answer. I called him again during lunch, but still no answer, so I left him a message. The following day, I called him again, and still no answer. It was imperative that Frank got his images, or else he would not be able to have his surgery. So I looked into his file to see if he had any other contact information. He had listed his home phone number as well as his wife's cell phone number. I called his house and left a message, and I also called his wife, Amy, but she didn't answer either, so I left her a message as well. The office manager, Diane, told me to just call whoever was listed in his emergency contacts, because if Frank did not get his images and missed the surgery, then she would have to do a whole new stack of paperwork to reschedule him, and she did not want to be bothered. So I looked to see if there was an emergency contact, and Frank listed a woman named Helen, relation to patient, girlfriend. I told Diane that I did not want to call Helen when I had already left a message for Amy, as it would put me in an awkward position. Diane said as long as the patient listed them as an emergency contact, I could call them. She also said it's not uncommon for couples to be separated, but still legally married for insurance reasons, and that this could possibly be the case for Frank and Amy, which I guess made sense. I really wanted to believe that nobody would be stupid enough to put their secret lover as their emergency contact. But boy, was I wrong. So I called Helen, and she actually answered her phone. I was secretly hoping that she wouldn't, and told her that Frank's images needed to be picked up prior to his surgery. She came by during lunch, got the images, and then left. I immediately called Frank again to let him know that Helen had picked up his images and to not worry about it. But this fool was not answering his phone, so I left him another message. So, a couple of hours later, Amy called back and said she wasn't able to answer before because she was teaching. But she got our message and was coming by to pick up Frank's images now. I told her that the images had already been picked up, and I tried to be as vague as possible. Amy asked, "Who picked them up? I know Frank is still busy at his office and hasn't had the chance to come get them." Me, again trying really hard to be vague, said, "Well, we called somebody from his emergency contact list." And Amy asked, "Was it his brother Steve?" At this point, I'm really nervous, so I said, "No, not his brother." "Well then who?" I told her Helen, and she said, "Who is Helen? I don't know anybody named Helen." Oh my goodness. I replied, "I'm not sure, but since she was on Frank's emergency contact list and nobody else was answering their phone, we called her and she came and got the images." Confused, Amy hung up. So the following day was Frank's surgery. The day after Frank's surgery, my boss jokingly asked me, "What the hell did you do to that guy? You basically ruined him." The guy came in all pissed at me saying that my secretary told his wife about his other girlfriend and now he's in hot water. I told my boss what happened and that Diane told me to call the girlfriend, and he understood. Diane tried to throw me under the bus saying, "I didn't tell her that Helen was Frank's girlfriend. I told her Helen was just a friend." She also said she never would have given me the green light to call a patient's mistress, but I reminded her in front of my boss that she said it was possible for Frank and Amy to be married, but separated. I was 18 years old at the time and just did whatever my superiors told me because I was really thirsty for a job after college. But I ended up not working there and went to work at a hospital instead. Oh my freaking goodness. Now listen guys, I'm not giving you tips on how to cheat, or even tell you that cheating is okay, because it's not. So what I'm about to say is that if you do cheat, don't do what Frank did. Putting your girlfriend on the emergency contact list when you're married is practically begging them to meet each other over your comatose body one day. This person's comment sums it up perfectly. What stupid guy puts his girlfriend as an emergency contact when trying to ensure his wife does not find out? I mean, I would think that that's in the How to Not Get Caught Cheating 101 handbook. So this happened about 30 odd years ago, and my mother recounted it recently during a family dinner. So back in the 1990s, my mom worked for this big time company. We'll call it Company W, as an accountant. Her boss, the head of finance, was a sleazy guy, and despite being semi-wealthy and married with kids, he always tried to pick up younger women in the office. Eventually, after a few years, my mom, being the amazing accountant she is, noticed small irregularities in several statements. Now, I don't know the technical terms, but mom realized that somebody was embezzling the company's money for at least a couple of decades. Concerned, she brought it up to the head of finance, who proceeded to demean her, call her names, botch her claim, and basically threatened to fire her if she ever brought it up again. My mother is not one to start crying, and instead sought to prove them wrong. However, a couple of months later, the head of finance brought in a new lady, a young, blonde, beautiful fresh out of college woman, to train under my mom. Now, my mother instantly knew what this was, and she started putting out feelers for a new job. In the meanwhile, she trained the younger lady who, to quote my mom, said she was not the brightest bulb. Now, Company W had a policy where if an employee was going to be fired, they would be allowed to say that they quit, to be able to give their week's notice and get pay. A fair policy. So one day, my mom was summoned by the head of finance and told that he was firing her. She quickly counteracted and used the policy to her advantage, which angered the head of finance, but he had to comply. So this is the malicious compliance I know you're waiting for. Now, generally when an employee is fired, there's no need for an exit interview. The head of finance told my mother in a rather rude way that since she was going about it that way, she might as well do an exit interview. My mother literally had a light bulb moment and said to him, in that case, she would. An exit interview is a formal way of leaving a job. It's a way for employees to share their experience and why they're leaving, for records. You can see where this is going. So, she was scheduled, and when she went in, my mother had to, of course, bring in files relating to her work and show it to the interviewer. My mom brought in 3 large boxes of files, each one containing evidence of embezzlement. She then presented it to the interviewer, who my mother told me was rather stunned, and proceeded to hand over all the evidence and proceeded with her exit. My mom then left the company that day, got new employment, and moved on. It was about a decade later that she learned what happened. My dad was a delivery driver at the time, and actually made a delivery to Company W. While he was there, he talked with an employee, mentioned my mom had worked there and how she left, and the employee told him quite the juicy story. So, in the year following my mother's departure and interview, her evidence was brought to HR and the CEO, who orders an internal investigation. Hidden cameras were placed in the accounting division, and every file made was screened and photocopied, and tiny details scrutinized, and bank records were triple-checked. I think you can see where this is going. Yep, the head of finance was embezzling from Company W, but it gets better. They caught him on camera making out with the new lady inside the main office after hours. To add insult to injury, the cameras also caught him being cruel to those under him and touching other women, etc. But the biggest thing was still the embezzlement. The head of finance managed to in 30 years steal over $1 million of Company W's earnings. The head of finance was summoned to the Big Cheese's office that day after the evidence was complied. And let's just say the head of finance wished he had simply been fired. He was arrested for the embezzlement, as well as a few other things that my mom can't recall. The new lady who came in actually revealed that he had brought her in after starting to date her, and even revealed to her what he was doing. Her job basically had been to help him cover up so they could live the rich life. She didn't even know exactly what accounting was other than managing money. The perfect cover, so to speak. But there's more. When his wife found out, the wife had come in while the ex-head of finance had been let out, and she just went up to him, smacked the now ex-head of finance, screamed obscenities at him before saying she'll see him in court for a divorce. While my dad couldn't learn exactly what happened next, what was clear was that the guy's life was basically ruined. And my mom, while not a vindictive person by any means, did feel somewhat joyful over the outcome. Lesson to be learned here: never screw with an accountant who actually knows what they're doing. My friends, think about this. If he had been nice, he would still be getting away with embezzlement to this day probably. $1 million over 30 years is absolutely insane. I wonder how much jail time he's gonna have to serve. The divorce is the least of his worries. So I work at a movie theater. It was Sunday morning, and usually this is a busy time with lots of small kids and kids movies. In this particular case, Karen went to the movies with her 2 kids, around the ages 4 and 5. As you guys know, movie theaters have high prices for snacks and drinks. It's obvious that I'm dealing with a total Karen straight from the start. Keeping on her sunglasses, chewing gum, and being on her phone the entire time she's waiting in line. When it's her turn, I think to myself, your shift just started, just be nice, and maybe this will go over smoothly. And it didn't. Karen is annoyed by the prices of the tickets and is not happy with the assortment of healthy snacks. Now for the little children. As they were acting like dogs and running around the place, I will name them like dogs. So Kid 1 is Ollie and Kid 2 is Rex. So, where I'm from, we have a display where you can scoop your own candy in a bag for a fixed price per 100 gram, about 3.5 ounces. So being a movie theater, this is crazy expensive and a full bag can cost around 16 to 17 euros. Ollie says, "Mommy, can we scoop some candy?" Karen asked how much for the candy, and I was about to say 150 per 100 grams. When the other kid begs to have candy too, and Karen tells him to just help the younger one. So at this point, she's already spent way too much time in line. Normally you scoop the candy before you make your purchase to prevent that. The transaction can take an extremely long time, and we can help other customers. Not for Miss Karen though. She just goes back to texting on her phone. I'm baffled, annoyed, and I just want to help other customers because the movie is starting in 15 minutes and the lines for the registers are not moving at all. So me, being the good Samaritan that I am, I try to eyeball the bag of candy Ollie has so I can get a rough estimate of how much the candy will cost. To my enjoyment, I see the kid with an enormous bag of candy almost the size of his head. So I estimate that it will be around 15 euros. Rex has a bag that isn't full, but he's still scooping, and I think to myself, realistically the price will be higher, but I just want this to be over and I don't want to overcharge them. I told her the total will be 44 euros, and Karen says, "What? Why is that so expensive?" I told her, "Miss, the candy weighs a lot and the prices, but you didn't even weigh it. You're trying to rip me off. Weigh it and give me the correct price." She says that as she grabs the bags from Ollie and Rex. Well, she was correct. I did not weigh it, but I wasn't trying to rip her off. Heck, I was giving her a huge discount. So I smiled to her, grabbed the bags of candy, and put them on the scale. I can see the price, and so can the customer. I said, "Sure, miss. As you can see, the price total will be 53 euros. So of course, Karen gets angry and wants me to call the manager because I'm still ripping her off. The manager comes along, weighs the candy, and confirms that the correct price is 53 euros. So because you have to pay for the candy when you grab it because of hygiene rules, Karen eventually buys everything and walks away angry with her kids. Luckily for me, the manager was a nice dude, so I did not get in trouble for guessing the weight. At the end of the shift, I was glad that I could ruin a movie experience for a Karen. Guys, what in the world? Those kids got over 7 pounds of candy. The price of candy aside though, who the heck lets their kids buy over 3 pounds of candy each? That's absolutely insane. And also every kid's dream. My friends, and that brings us to another end of our /MaliciousCompliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you missed the last episode of our /MaliciousCompliance, I will link it right here. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.